Anything yet?
No.
Are we on 4 o'clock?
The laptop computer says 4 o'clock.
And
Nothing's happening yet. Oh, okay. So now your live stream is up on your channel
okay,
that you can click on to view.
okay,
The actual live stream hasn't started yet.
okay. So I'm still. This is episode 2, and we're still trying to figure out, or just trying to be sure of what actually happens. Anything come up on the live stream?
Nothing yet.
But I'm streaming on the channel.
No, there's a little. Hold on. Okay, it looks like the link that you sent out is not streaming anything yet, but if you click on the link on your channel, it's streaming.
Okay. I don't know what to say to anybody who happens to be viewing at the moment. But the link that YouTube gave me doesn't seem to want to...
Yeah, the link that YouTube gave you isn't streaming.
Okay, can you click on that link?
Yeah, I'm on it right now, and I'm refreshing it, nothing's happening. It just says the live stream is starting soon. So...
We'll get there in a moment. So what? But the other one works.
Yeah, if people go to your channel...
Okay, so if you go to the channel, you'll find a link, or you'll find a screen there, and you click on it.
The problem with telling those people is they're already on.
Okay, you already know this, but it's for the people.
So you got 3 people watching you now on
Okay.
the live stream.
And well, all I can see is YouTube told me this is the link, and I gave you the link, but the link doesn't start streaming. Okay, well, at this point,
Maybe give people 2 minutes to slide over and...
yeah, okay, no. So you're going to wait?
6 people now. I mean, maybe.
Are you going to wait for a minute?
Oh, wait, I'll hang up for a minute.
Okay, so we're going to start. So, hello. Today we're going to do an hour, and it's mainly on Teresa's question, and we're going to be looking in some detail at 3, 5, 7 cards: the 2 of Cups, the Knight of Cups, the Tower, the 8 of Pentacles, the 2 of Batons, the 5 of Swords, and the 3 of Swords. And we're going to look at them because Teresa wanted to know, how do you figure out, or how do you know if you've got 3 cards, 2 regular cards, and we're using the Tower reversed as being a problem. How do you know whether the 2 cards control the Tower, or whether the Tower is so strong that it messes up the other 2 cards? So it's really a question about how do you figure out what's strongest, or what's most likely to happen if you've got more than 1 card that you're dealing with. And we'll get to that soon. But I wanted to begin with, I'm still kind of annoyed about the YouTube link not working directly.
It's working now. A thing popped up and you click on it and then it starts streaming it. Doesn't
Okay.
automatically. So I would just go as if it's working.
Okay.
About 7 people.
So, but the YouTube link started after 4 o'clock.
You had to click on it after 4 o'clock.
Okay, you have to click on. All right. Okay. So you're off.
I think
That's my assistant.
So you're good?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Okay. So, 8 cards. So, but before we look at the actual cards, I wanted to make a couple of general points, and one is, often on YouTube and on Facebook and other places, you'll find people will give you a quote of the day, some inspirational statement by somebody about something, and they're usually very good. You know, I looked for one, and it said, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. So that can be very useful information. And it's in suggesting that even if you're on the right track, you still have to do stuff. You can't just sit there and wait for it to come to you. So it's encouraging you to go out and make stuff happen and do things that you want to do. So the quote of the day, and these inspirational quotes that people post, and on blogs and on Facebook, they're fine, and it's all very well. But somehow, I can read them, and I think this is good, but it's not that pertinent. It's not that relevant to me at the moment. And so, if you have quotes, you can always give them to people during a reading, but it may not answer their question, right? So somebody can want to know, are they going to have a good relationship? And you tell them about, even if you're on the right track, you're going to get hit by a train. So that can suggest go out and meet people. So maybe you could use it that way. But I think the value of the tarot is that, and I said this last time, that it's here and now, right? And it works because it deals with that particular person at the moment they're asking the question, to do with the question that they're asking. Because if you think of it, there are mottos, right? Little words of wisdom. And you can say, let's say you're not sure about what to do. I just need to move this down a little bit. Let's say you're not sure what to do. So you say to a friend, okay, what do I do? And I want to start a business, right? And the friend says to you, okay, what's most important is look before you leap, right? That's the wisdom that they tell you. And they say, okay, so look before you leap. So don't just rush into it, but make sure you've got the customers and you've got the money and you've got the premises or whatever it happens to be. And you think, that's good, that's what I'm going to do. And then you mention this to another friend, and the other friend gives different advice, and the other friend says, remember, he who hesitates is lost. So don't delay, just go out and make it happen. And that's kind of the opposite to look before you leap. So you get two people that you know and maybe you trust, and one's telling you, don't just start something, but make sure it's going to work before you start it. And the other's saying, don't bother making sure it works before you start it, just go out and make it happen. Right? So you get quotes and words of wisdom and today's motto and today's helpful hint and spiritual understanding and so on. And in themselves, each one of them in itself is interesting and useful and good and correct, we can say. But it's not always an answer to the question that the person has asked. So I think that this is what I like about the tarot, that somebody wants to know something, and you pick a card, let's say, or a couple of cards, and you give them the answer to that question at that time. So, and I think that I mentioned last time about watching videos on chess, and how, let's say you want to know what should I do next, and you turn a card. The card for the future is telling you your next best move, the best thing you can do, or the most sensible or the most likely of a good result, action that you can take now in the future. So what the card indicates may not be perfect. So this is for you when you're doing a reading for somebody and they want to know about the future. And you tell them the cards that have come up, and you relate the cards that come up to their future, and you paint a picture for them. What you tell them and what they get, it may not be perfect, but this is in a lot of ways because we're in a difficult position to begin with, which is why we're asking the question. And but by following the method or the logic or the action of the card that you get, and the action might be do nothing, right? Because if you get a king sitting there, what should I do? Sit there and think about it before you do anything. So, but that's the next best move that you can make. And so even it's not, but by sitting there and waiting, it's not going to solve all the problems and make everything right. But at least you're moving. It may not be perfect, but at least you're moving in a good direction, or in the direction of perfection. So what you get from the card for the future is worth doing, or it's the right move, or it's a good move for your overall development, even though it may not seem that reasonable or logical at the time that you're told to do this particular thing. But it's worth doing, and it's the right move. Let me just open up this screen. Okay. Sorry, I need to. Oh, I've got all these. Scroll. Okay. Okay, I'm looking at names of people here, and I'm thinking maybe we could. Sorry, I've got screens open. Maybe I'll go through a bit and stop, and then if you have questions, ask your question, and then we'll look at it. And then I'll talk again, and then we'll ask. Only because I find when I look at the screen and try to read what people are commenting and talk at the same time, it's very difficult to do, and I get distracted. So let me go back to what my introductory remarks were about. And so the card for the future may not be perfect, but it's relevant and it's pertinent. So it's something it's telling you what's most important or what's very important at that time. And so there's some statement, not exactly a joke, but it's a bit like, if you have a hammer, then every problem you see is a nail. Okay, so we tend, if we have one technique, or if we have a certain psychology that we use or that we rely on, then whenever there's a problem, we're going to see everything through the eyes of that particular psychology. And the psychology may be fine, but I think it's not always going to be the next best thing to do. And I remember some years ago, there was a TV show I was watching. It was one of these morning things, and they had a psychologist on, and somebody in the audience wanted to know, she was having a problem at work, and the psychologist said, okay, what you have to do is confront your boss. I forget what the specifics were, but he said confront the boss because that was his approach to life problems. You don't sit back, you not attack, but you deal with every situation. And so he thought it was important for this woman to confront the boss. And I couldn't help but think, okay, if you're forceful and used to confrontation and you confront the boss, you've got a decent chance of success. But if you're shy and retiring naturally and don't like confrontation, if you try to confront the boss, it's going to backfire. You're going to end up worse than you started, I think, because you're doing something that's not really in your nature to do. It may be a good thing to learn about, but taking on the boss and confronting the boss without previous experience is probably going to backfire. So the advice of the psychologist may have been good, quote unquote, good advice, but I don't know how pertinent or how relevant it was for that particular woman, because I could see her going and confronting the boss and it falls apart and it backfires on her. Whereas if we had the tarot with us, and if the psychologist on stage had picked a card for the woman, and if he'd got the Emperor card to represent the woman, then he can say, okay, go and confront the boss, because the Emperor can handle it. He's running an empire, the Emperor is. So the woman, it would indicate that the woman had it in her to hit the nail on the head or to confront somebody and to deal directly with the individual, and they wouldn't back down. Or if they did back down, they would only back down when they got what they actually came for. Right? So the Emperor could handle confronting the boss. But if the psychologist on stage had picked a card and got the Page of Cups reversed, let's say, to make it worse. So it's not good advice to say to the Page of Cups reversed, confront the boss, because the Page of Cups reversed isn't that type of individual who can easily or comfortably fight people or take them on or stand up for their own opinion and their own belief. So I think quotes of the day are fine, but I think what's more useful is picking a card and describing or explaining the next best move, let's say, or what's been going on, and it's based on, in some way, based on the nature of the person who's asking the question, and it's not also expecting them to do something they can't handle. And again, that's something about I think we should remember with the tarot, that when we turn a card for somebody or do a spread for somebody, what we get in the answer may not be something we would want or we would want to do or that we would be comfortable doing. But it's not about us. It's not about the reader. It's about the person asking the question. So if you look at a card and begin to doubt it, forget about you, because it's the questioner who's the important one in the relationship with the card, and it's not particularly you. So with all this kind of stuff in mind, that's why I like people to choose, before a reading, I like them to choose a number between 1 and 9 and tell me which one, and a number between 0 and 22 and tell me which one. 22 is okay, there's 22 major trumps, but the Fool can be 0, but it can also be 22, right? So I like them to choose a number. And so 22 is the Fool, but 0 is the Fool at the beginning with inexperience. They haven't done anything yet. But 22 is the Fool at the end of the cycle. So they're beginning they're going to begin a new cycle, let's say, but they know an awful lot because they've already been through one. So it's a difference between, I'm thinking of Donald Trump, only because I happened to read a newspaper thing today on the internet, and there was something about Donald Trump and last night's Republican debate. And it's a bit like Donald Trump has never had public office, but he's run companies and he's been financially bankrupt, or I think that happened to him in the 80s and he lost all his money, but he remade it again. So it's as if Donald Trump would be 22, because even though he's never been in politics before, he's got an awful lot of first-hand experience of dealing with problems and people and certain kinds of power situations, right? So he's already got that. Whereas somebody else, let's say I were running for President of the United States, I'd be the Fool as 0, because I don't really know the United States, I don't know the US government, I don't know power politics, I don't know politics, right? So that's like the Fool who is at the very beginning, who doesn't do anything much. And it's all a risk because you're sort of keeping your fingers crossed that it's going to work for you. But if somebody picks 22, you know they've been through a lot because they've been through the cycle once. They're beginning again because it's 22, but they're sort of beginning with understanding, with knowledge that they can draw on. So I get people to choose two numbers. So if somebody chooses 1 and 19, 1 is the magician, creative, intelligent, capable, adaptable, right? The magician. And 19 is the sun. So with somebody who chooses 1 and 19, you can talk to them about the future, about plans, about expectations, about having things work out the way they want and being successful, right? Because they chose 1 and 19. So even if they're not totally sure that they're going to be able to have the success that they want, you're talking to them in that kind of a way. Yes, you have ideas, you have imagination, you're going to be successful. That can tip the scales for them. So they've got a belief in themselves, and somebody else talking about it can really reinforce the expectation of success, which can help bring it about. Right, so that's two numbers, 1 and 19, and that's a certain. You know that if let's say somebody chooses 1 and 19, and in the reading you get kind can't think of a card, the Eight of Pentacles. And they're starting something new. You know that they're going to do well, right? Because the Eight of Pentacles will work hard and repeat and keep going and put their stuff out for sale or put it on show. And they're going to have confidence. Whereas if somebody chooses 6 and 15, so 6 is the Lovers, so you're at crossroads. And you can be indecisive when you choose a number 6. You don't quite know whether to go left or right. Are you going to try something new? Or are you going to stick with what you know you've always done in the past and be limited because of that? And 15 is the Devil, right? So there's a chance that you're going to be sucked into somebody else's situation or seduced by them or talked into doing stuff you don't really want to do. So 6, the Lovers, and 15, the Devil, the two together, that's a very different type of individual you're dealing with than the one who chose 1 and 19, right? Because the Magician and the Sun describe hope and ideas and freedom and success and imagination, whereas 6 and 15 describe indecision, fear, expecting that you're going to get messed around, you're going to get stuck with something you didn't really want, that kind of thing from 6 and 15. So I like to get people to pick a number between 1 and 9 and 0 and 22, and I use that as I tell them the meaning of those two numbers first, because it can give people an idea of their own general situation, their own general state of mind, or their own situation, so that they partly because when you talk about the numbers that they choose and what you say makes sense as it will, even if you just give basic information about the two major trumps. And even if you don't know that much about the two major trumps, what you say is going to mean a lot to the person, and their confidence in you as a reader is going to be that much better as well, and that much higher, because they don't know you, but you've described their life and what's going on and what's important, and you've never met. So how did you do it? You did it through the numbers that they chose. So it came from them, but nevertheless, it proves to them that you know what you're about and what you're talking about, which is a better foundation for doing a reading, I think, than somebody who's full of doubt and thinks this tarot's a bit dodgy and it's a bit, iffy, and it's not, I don't really know why I'm here, that kind of person. But getting them to pick the numbers and then talking a little bit about the numbers and the types of situations that the person has referred to by choosing those numbers, even if they don't consciously know the symbolism of numbers, it's still going to make a lot of sense. And also forces you, the reader, to have an idea about what the major trumps mean. So number 7 is a Chariot. What does the Chariot mean if it comes up in a reading? It's one that a lot of people, I don't know about a lot of people, but people can get stuck with because they're not quite sure what to say about it. So if you, as a reader, make yourself know what kind of things you would say about to somebody who chooses any two numbers, it's a good exercise for you, and you'll end up more confident and more fluent when you talk about any card, but especially as well when you talk about the major trumps. Okay, let me look at the screen. Does anybody have anything to say? Any question or anything they want to deal with at this point before we go on to look at the questions? I'll give you 6 and 2. Okay. Starry Crown said 6 and 2. Okay. Oh, Sally Chamberlain. Okay. 6 and 2. So the Lovers and the High Priestess. If you choose 6 and 2, you're dealing with the Lovers, and so you're at in older, I like older decks because the lovers used to be represented as the two paths, where you've got a young man standing at crossroads. On one side there's the mother, who represents all that he was brought up with and what he knows and what he's familiar with. On the other side there's the wife, who represents the new future that he can build for himself. And when people choose the number 6, they're at crossroads, and they have to choose. They don't have to choose, but they think they ought to choose one way or the other, and they're maybe undecided about which way to go, what's the best thing to do. That's from the number 6, and you won't go wrong if somebody chooses 6 and you say you're at crossroads, aren't you? And they'll, how did you know that? It's because it's true. 2 is the high priestess, and you've got this woman off in a darkened area, and you approach her with respect and quietly. You don't rush in with a pint of beer in your hand and singing a rugby song, and you know, you're polite and you approach her respectfully, and it's a little bit serious. Okay, so if you choose 6 and 2, you're at crossroads, and what you ought to do, I know we're not supposed to tell people what they ought to do, but if 6 and 2, a good plan is look within, forget people for the time being, forget other people, but examine your own desires and hopes and expectations, and figure out, make a list of what you actually want and what's important to you. And so maybe what you do is you meditate, or you read some interesting books, or you get some ideas and you think about why we're in life and what life is for, and how you were going to live it fully and how we're going to live it better each day. You ask yourself those types of questions. Then when you come back to the crossroads, you're going to know which way to go, whether to go with what's new or whether to stick with what's old. So it's a bit like you take the 2 together and you think about each one individually and just tell a little story from it. Or maybe you would want to start with the high priestess, number 2, and talk about 6. So maybe you start, if it occurs to you to talk about the high priestess, you say to the person, you've got a solitary streak in you and you ought to honour it. Because the high priestess likes to be alone and in her quiet surroundings where she can contemplate and meditate and be at peace, right? So you've got this solitary streak. If you pretend you don't have, you're going to get sick. You're doing yourself an injustice. You're not going to be as capable as you actually are. So it's important for you to spend time alone. And even if you've got 3 children and a husband and a busy job, you need to take 15 minutes a day, which is quiet time for you, so you can recharge your batteries, or so you can get rid of the thoughts and the ideas that you pick up in the course of the day, but you really don't want, and you certainly don't want to keep them. So you give yourself 15 minutes a day, at least, to go through what's been going on, keep what's valuable to you, and get rid of what is basically junk and not anything to do with you, and it's not your choice. So you could, instead of starting with 6 and 2, you could start with 2 and then bring in 6, so that if you take the 15 minutes a day and cleanse yourself or get rid of what doesn't belong to you, you won't be as indecisive, because you'll know what you care about from the 15 minutes meditation, which means that when you're given a problem or you're given a choice to go left or right, you're going to know the right way to go, because you've thought things through in your 15 minutes of alone time. Okay. Excuse me. Let me drink some tea here. Okay, so Teresa wanted to know, let's say you've got 3 cards. Somebody wants to know, am I going to have a good relationship? And you get 2 good cards, and you get the Tower reversed. So she wants to know, does the Tower reverse, because of Major Trump and its destruction, does it destroy the 2 cards that came first? because she was thinking, and we're going to look at the Two of Cups, the Knight of Cups, and the Tower reversed first. Right, so the Tower reversed is kind of the third card. So, does the Tower reversed destroy the good that's in the Two of Cups and the Knight of Cups? Or are the Two of Cups, is the good in the Two of Cups and the Knight of Cups strong enough to mean that the Knight of Cups, the Tower reversed is a problem, but it's not going to destroy the relationship? That's the idea. And we've got, let me just move this over so I can see the time. Okay, that's the basic point. So, I'd like to look, we're dealing with a three card spread, so I'd like to look at, let's consider these three cards as a yes-no spread. If you've, the middle card in a yes-no spread counts for 2 yeses or 2 nos. So if the card is upright, it means yes. If it's upside down, it means no. Right? So if we've got the Two of Cups, the Knight of Cups, and the Tower reversed, you've got yes, 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 no. So the answer, are you going to have a good relationship, is yes, because the numbers prove it, so to speak. Okay, Sally just said, why 2 cards? What does each signify? 1 through to 9 is followed by 10, and 10 is 1 plus nothing, gets you back to 1 again. So there's something self-contained about the numbers 1 through to 9. Right? That's why I asked to pick a number between 1 and 9. Also, there are 9 planets that we use, and I always say don't include astrology with the tarot, but I have had various stuff in the background, so I make something of the number of the planet, but I always talk about the major trump that goes with that number, but 1 through to 9, mainly because 10 is 1 plus nothing, gets you back to 1 again, so 1 through to 9 is a complete cycle. And I think it's important to recognize the part of the cycle that the person's in. And 0 to 22 is because there's 22 major trumps. But they're full of 0 and 22. So that's why I get 2 numbers instead of just a 1. Okay, so if we've got the Two of Cups, the Knight of Cups upright, and the Tower reversed, are you going to have a good relationship? And the answer is yes, because you add up 2, you get 3 yeses and 1 no. So you then look at the Two of Cups shows the two people, they obviously like each other. So you've got that going for you. And then you've got the Knight of Cups, which is you say nice things to each other, and you're observant and you're attentive of each other, because the Knights are messengers, and they bring change, and the Knight of Cups brings lovingness and goodness and kindness and things that relate to getting on well with people. So that because the first card's a Two of Cups, because you sort of like each other, love each other, are passionate about each other, only because there's a red line above the two people. And because you're sort of exchange and you're on the same wavelength, and because your thoughts and messages to each other are loving and kind as well, the Tower reversed would be a glitch. It would be an upset. So it could be that one or the other does or says something that hurts the other person. But because the first 2 cards are the same suit and show lovingness and kindness between 2 people, and because we got 3 yeses and 1 no, we go with the Tower reversed is something that interferes with the smooth flowing of the relationship, rather than the straw that breaks the camel's back, or rather than an upset that completely destroys what was already a half decent relationship. And the Tower, we should remember, it doesn't have to be a huge cataclysm. I know in the picture we've got the lightning flash and the tower, the crown being knocked off the top of the tower and the people falling headlong. probably to their death, because it's high tower and there's gravity in play. But the tower reversed, it doesn't have to be, a major catastrophe. It can be a little thing that makes a big difference. So you can realize something in the cards we're looking at. You can realize something that changes how you see the other person. And maybe it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to, or to come to live with the realization that you had before. And so there's something new about the person that you've got to incorporate into your relationship. So it can be a little thing. Maybe you discover that the person likes Celine Dion, and you think, what? How could I have married somebody who likes Celine Dion? Or something like that. And it's not a big deal, but it can be a shock to somebody because maybe they hate Celine Dion, or they didn't know that David Bowie just died. And I like some of his songs, but I cannot for the life of me understand how he could record a song with Bing Crosby and how he could record The Little Drummer Boy. And even if he did record The Little Drummer Boy with Bing Crosby, how he could release it with his own name on it. So I found it very difficult to take David Bowie seriously after I heard him singing a duet with Bing Crosby, of all people. It just didn't compute. It didn't go with the person who wrote Ziggy Stardust and some other songs. So that can be the tower reverse. A little thing changes your basic understanding of the person or the situation. It doesn't have to be, a thunderstorm that destroys buildings. Can anything good be said of the Ten of Swords? Yes, it's the last of the swords, and it's followed by the Ace, which is a brand new beginning. So it's a 10 for the end of a cycle. So if it's upright, go through the cycle, figure out what you did wrong, and make sure you don't do it again that same way that was bad. And if it's upside down, make sure you make a list of what you did wrong, because you're going to do it wrong again. And you should remind yourself periodically of what not to do. Do you mean putting a person on a pedestal? Could be, okay, so we tend to do this with people. We worship them and we put them on a pedestal. And then we think they fall off the pedestal, but it was our own fault. It was our understanding that put them on the pedestal in the first place. So we worship them. And then they do something that doesn't compute with our understanding of them. And so that's the tower reverse, or the tower, where it upsets things, even though the other person had no part of this fantasy or this imagination that we created, and the story we told ourselves about the other person. So I must mention Sue Bryce. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so let me just rush on here because I'm looking at the time and we're almost 40 minutes. So, will you have a good relationship? Let's say you do a yes-no spread, or you could look at those three cards as past, present, and future. So in the past, you were the Two of Cups. You loved each other. Now, the Knight of Cups, you are friendly and loving to each other. In the future, you've got the Tower reversed. So expect a glitch. Expect something to happen that will cause an upset, but don't worry about it. And at this point, okay, this is where what the reader knows is important. So if you're doing readings for other people, you ought to have an idea or various ideas about how to get a job, about what's a good, how to write a resume, how to handle an interview. You ought to have an idea about why we're in life in the first place, and some answers to the question of why do we exist, and have some answers to the question about what are other people in our life for. Because let's say you get the Tower reversed as the future of this relationship, and you say to him, okay, there's a glitch. if you don't know, if you the reader don't know or don't have anything informative or educational to say about what to do if a relationship begins to go bad, right? So you say, okay, you've got the tower reverse in the future, so you're going to fall apart, and you're going to hate each other, and the questioner says, okay, what do I do? And you say, I don't know. That's really not good enough. So you ought to have some idea of. The reader ought to have some ideas about how to handle a relationship that's gone wrong or is going bad or isn't as good as it could be. So there's a woman, a photographer, she's from New Zealand. Her name is Sue Bryce, Bryce. So you go on YouTube and you type in Sue Bryce confronting fear, and you get a link to a video that she made. And it's a photography course, but the first 15 minutes she brings in other people, but then once they leave the stage, it's just Sue talking about her own life and what she went through and how she figured out what to do and how she sort of reinvented herself. And it's so interesting what she says and how she explains things. She talks about how we think we're victims and that destroys us, and how our ego gets in the way and that destroys us, and how we think too small and that destroys us as well. And so she talks about, I think there were 7 typical problems that people have when it comes to themselves and when it comes to relationships. Because we need other people, and this is important, we need other people to teach us about us. And that's it. So when we look to other people and don't like what they do, we're really seeing some part of us that we don't feel responsible for. And so we blame them instead of understanding that it starts and ends with us. And we need other people to be mirrors of us. And they'll reflect back some characteristics that we don't like or we don't believe that we have. And Sue talks about this in her little talk. And it's really powerful, the way she talks about it and how she explains. I don't want to spoil it by telling you what she actually says. So it's an hour and 5 minutes maybe. Find an hour and watch it. It's totally useful. And if you do readings for other people and if you do readings for yourself, you're going to find a ton of useful information in there that will make life so much better. Okay, so let's say, okay, so Teresa said, okay, we got the 2 of Cups and the Knight of Cups and Tower reversed. But what if you had a kind of, I can't remember the word she used, but let's say the first card is the 8 of Pentacles, and then the 2 of Batons, and then the Tower reversed. So you get 2 cards that aren't obviously loving and kind the way the 2 of Cups and the Knight of Cups are. So, again, if we look at it as a past present, as a yes, no, the 8 of Pentacles is upright. Excuse me. The 8 of Cups is upright. The 8 of Pentacles is upright. The 2 of Batons is upright. So that's 3 yeses, and the Tower is reversed. That's a no. So are you going to have a good relationship? And the answer is yes. So the 8 of Pentacles, you're willing to work at the relationship, right? Because some people care and actually go out their way to be considerate of the partner. Other people don't really consider that. With the 2 of Batons, you've got ambition as well, because you're up in the high tower looking out. And so the 2 together, the ability to put effort into the relationship and the fact that you're interested in the long-term future of the relationship. Then you've got the Tower reversed. Something's going to come in that will cause you to have to re-examine your long-term goals represented by the Tower, as well as the kind of work that you do in the relationship represented by the 8 of Coins. Or if it's past, present and future, then in the past let me skip that because I'm looking at the time and I want to get to, if you look at, let's say somebody wants to know, am I going to have a good relationship? And you turn 3 cards, but you're not thinking of past, present and future, and you're not thinking of yes, no. You just want 3 cards for 3 typical or important considerations or situations or conditions that the relationship is going to go through. Just as a general. So you're not thinking of it past, present, future, or yes, no. So we've got the 8 of Pentacles and the 2 of Batons and the Tower reversed. So the 8 of Pentacles, this could be that it can be that the Tower reversed shows a conflict between the 8 of Pentacles and the 2 of Batons. Right? So you've got 2 cards and you've got the 2 people falling out in the Tower reversed. So it could be that on the one hand you've got the 8 of Pentacles. So maybe one of the people or one partner goes to work and has a job and makes the money. The other partner is represented by the 2 of Batons. The other person has ambition and wants a career rather than just a job. And so the Tower reverse can be a conflict emerges because you've got the one who wants to work hard and make money, and you've got the other one who wants a career and maybe a business. So you've got 2 different types of people, or maybe it's within one individual. They've got a job, but they want a career. And how are they going to have both? Or how can they have the career, which is maybe more important? Because maybe if they want the career, they've got to give up some income in the short term. And is the other person going to be okay with that? And this can be the nature of the conflict or the glitch that's shown by the Tower reversed. So you can, if you look at the 3 cards as being 3 situations or 3 conditions that are important or relevant for this relationship that the person's having or the relationship that people are involved in, remember to use your imagination. You can put things together. So you don't always have to follow the rules. Which Tower deck do you use and why? The only one is the Rider deck, mainly because it's not that particular. If you look at the Robin Wood deck, that was written by somebody who has a particular outlook, and she's got certain symbolism in the cards because it relates to witchcraft and spell casting and I don't know what else it does. Whereas the Rider deck is more neutral. And it's not a particular time or place. And it's not particularly related to 20th century Europe or, 21st century North America or anywhere. And the other thing about the Rider deck is anybody with no background at all in the tarot can look at the picture and do something with it. So they can look at the 8 of Swords, which shows the person trapped in blindfold, surrounded by swords in the water. And they can look at the card and see, yes, the person's stuck. Whereas you look at the 8 of Swords in other decks and they're kind of stylized. Or maybe the person, I'm thinking of, can't remember what it's called, the Deviant Moon Tarot, is quite specific in a lot of ways. But I think you need to know and incorporate the understanding of the designer into the meaning of the card if you're going to do it properly. Whereas with the Rider deck, you could show it to your grandmother and show the picture and she's going to be able to make something of it. And the other thing is, as the reader describes what's going on in the picture, the questioner can look at that picture and see exactly why you're saying what you're saying. So it makes sense to them. Whereas you could get the Robin Wood tarot deck. The only thing I can remember is the Fool. And the Fool is looking to the right of the picture instead of to the left. And this is important because over here on the left, on my left, is sunrise and over here is sunset. So in the Rider deck, the Fool's looking at sunrise, new beginnings. In the Robin Wood deck, the Fool's looking at the sunset, which is the end of the day. And there's a big difference between sunrise and sunset. So there are specific things that work and they make sense in the writer deck that don't work in other decks. Okay. So let me just, I was looking, okay. So the Eight of Pentacles and the Two of Batons could be two, it could be two threads in the mind of one of the people. And that's shown by the conflict between these two lines of development is shown by the Tower reversed. Or it could be that one partner is represented by the Eight of Pentacles, the other partner is represented by the Two of Batons. So one is more steady and slow, the Eight of Pentacles, the other has ambition. And so what are you going to do? Because if you've been in a relationship with somebody and they're quite happy doing what's normal, but you've got ambition, you've got ideas, so what do you do? You know, you have to get the other person to go with you, or else you give up your ideals and give in. I was thinking of me. When I left university, I couldn't think of what to do. So I thought, okay, I'll go to teacher training college in Jordan Hill in Glasgow. And so I filled in the forms and sent them off. But I really didn't want to go to Jordan Hill. But it was safe because I'd go to Jordan Hill, get a teaching qualification, and then I would teach for 2 years because you're a probationary teacher for 2 years. Then you get the full qualification. Then I'd be free to go where I wanted in the world and get a teaching job, because you can always get teaching jobs. So that's what I was going to do. But I didn't want to, because I wanted to leave Glasgow, that day. So I ended up, I had a night's security job in Govan Gasworks it was, and I was sitting in a truck late at night or 2 in the morning, and it was raining, and I thought, I'm not going to go to Jordan Hill. I'm going to find the first job I can find anywhere in the world and apply for it and go, because I'm just not going to go to Jordan Hill and do the safe thing and do the sensible thing. I'm going to do what I want to do, which is to leave this damn country. Excuse my language. But Scotland in those years is probably still quite bad, but I just wanted to leave, So I look in the London Times the next day, it happened to be, and they wanted history teachers in Switzerland, and I had a degree in history, so I phoned them and get the papers and sign up, and a couple of months later I was in Switzerland teaching without a qualification. Eventually got one in Bath later, but it was just a point. So if you, and the thing is, it all sort of fell into place for me, because I made that decision that night, and the job was advertised the next day, and I got it, even though other people would apply and with better qualifications. But it's as if it was going to work for me because I really wanted it. So the Eight of Pentacles and the Two of Batons can be two sides of you, and something has to give, the Tower reversed. Or you give up on the dream and the crazy idea that's not so crazy, actually, because you wouldn't have thought of it in the first place if you weren't supposed to do something about it. Or you give up on the crazy dream and just knuckle under. And I can't help but remember Bob Dylan's "He Not Busy Being Born is a Busy Dying." Remember that from, I forget which song it was from. It's All Right Now. Anyway, there's something we can consider for ourselves every day. Are we doing something to be busy being born, or are we just letting things slide and not being that involved in our life and letting things go? And then at the end of the week, remember that Pink Floyd kicking around on a piece of ground in your hometown, waiting for someone or something to show you the way. And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun, right? So what are we going to do with the tarot? I think we're on the road, so to speak, and we've got an interest and we've got possibilities that other people don't have. because it changes you, and it gets you interested in what's going on. And so if something goes wrong, you look at it and think, oh, a problem, a situation to be solved, rather than, oh no, it's the end of life as we know it. Okay. So somebody keeps getting judgment. What does this mean in her relationship? And somebody said, good question, Sally. Okay, Sally, you keep getting judgment. It's time to be reborn. The people in the coffin, they heard the angel blow the trumpet, and either the people in the coffin removed the lid, or else the noise of the trumpet removed the lid for them. So it's time to listen to the trumpet call and time to do what's really important for you, not for anybody else. So maybe what you do is you think about what you've been taught as what's normal and what you should do. And then you make a list for what you really want to do. And then you do what you really want to do. But you understand how you've been... Watch the Sue Bryce video. It's so important. Sue Bryce confronting fear. And give yourself an hour and 10 minutes to watch that whole video. And then watch it again. Because she'll tell you things there that will explain an awful lot. So that's what you do. But with judgment, it's time to move on, time to move to the next level, so to speak, or to begin to do, light just went out, time to do what's important for you. Okay, the light came on again. So I've got 3 minutes, and Teresa asked as well, what if you get the 5 of Swords, the 3 of Swords, and the Tower reversed? What does that mean, or what do you do with that? So I wanted to get to this because with this 5 of Swords, you've got the people who've been in the fight, and somebody goes off to comfort them. And does any card represent deception? The devil reversed. The 7 of Swords reversed. The moon. Things like that. Okay, so the 5 of Swords, you've got the people, there's been the fight and the aftermath, and people have been hurt. And the 3 of Swords is the heart pierced with the sword, so it's painful. So let's say that's the past and the present. Okay, if it's a yes, no, the first 2 cards are upright, so the Tower reversed is no, but the answer is yes, you can still have a good relationship. But it's a bit like with the 5 of Swords, people have been hurt. The 3 of Swords, you pierce with 3 swords, and the card in the future is, the third card is a Tower reversed. So it's a bit like those 3 cards are telling you what not to do. Don't be cruel. Don't use a sword, because if you do, you'll end up hurting yourself. The 3 of Swords, the heart pierced with swords. So with the Tower, it's a bit like with the first 2, it was more, the Tower would represent a glitch. But with this particular spread, the 5 of Swords, the 3 of Swords, and the Tower reversed, it's more like, don't do this stuff anymore. At the same time, the 5 of Swords, the 3 of Swords, and the Tower reversed, that's kind of rough for a relationship. You can look at it and think, it's not going to work. But if you're doing a yes-no spread, the answer is yes, it is going to work. Even though it may not be what you thought would be a good relationship, or it's not what you would choose, not what you would want. But the thing is, some people's relationships are like that. They're tough, they're difficult, they're hostile. So you can't look at it and judge personally that it's not going to work if you're doing a yes-no spread. You have to go with what the tarot tells you. And so you explain the 5 of Swords is being cruel and mean to other people. The 3 of Swords, it backfires on you. And then you're in this kind of recurring cycle of difficulty. So break out of it. And this is where the reader knows some ideas about how to handle difficult relationships because of what you've read, or because of what you've discovered, or because of blogs that you follow, or because you've listened to Sue Bryce's video. Okay. At this point, I don't know what's going to happen, whether the streaming continues beyond the hour that I set. So, but I think what I'm going to stop now. So next one is going to be, I think, Wednesday at 4 o'clock. I'll try it then and see what happens. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Have a good few days. We'll talk to you again. I'm going to click stop streaming now.